Well, hello and good afternoon. Live um, Without Limits and Alejandro Tornato coming directly from Beaufort, Georgia. And yes, I'm wearing this kind of a sweater because I don't know, it's a little bit chilly today on the chilly side, even though, I mean, it's sunny outside. But I am so glad that it's once again Carpe Diem with Alejandro and Bob. And without any delay, I would like to bring my dear friend and colleague, Bob DiGiacomo, to join me here in the room. And here you are. Oh my goodness. I
What?
cannot believe
What?
that. Is
What?
that hold on one second. Is that Bob? Did I bring the wrong person?
Must be. I got the same earpieces in.
Well, yes. I mean, the earpieces are the same, but uh, I just feel. I feel that I am. I don't know. I mean, would you see a difference in your very formal attire? I did not get the memo today. You
Well,
never sent
I
me the
think, I
memo.
think, I think, I think it's all about your perspective, personally. But speaking of chili, I love chili. Or are you referring to the country Chile?
No, well, I was referring to the fact that the temperature was a little bit on the low side. So
Oh,
it
so
was
chili.
a chilly. That's right.
But of course, if you ate some chili, you wouldn't be chili anymore. And I don't know if they serve chili in Chile. Who knows?
That's exactly right.
But no, it's all about perspective, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, is that what we're talking about today?
Today, yes, today we come to a very important juncture into Carpe Diem with Alejandro and Bob because we are going to be discussing about the topic of perspective. I mean, your perspective may not be the same as my perspective,
Well,
and Bob's perspective.
well, the other day, and by the way, that was a great session that we had the other day talking about purple cows.
Oh, that was great.
And of course, you had on purple, but I had on a composite of different colors that could have blended in to be purple. So I said to myself, let me be a purple cow today. And it's all about perspective,
Exactly.
which
Yes,
what we're going to be talking about.
that's exactly right. So, um, you know, when we knew that we were going to be talking about perspective.
Unplugged.
Yes, unplugged, of course. Yes, no previous preparation. I mean, this is all unplugged, so anything goes. But I went and I took the liberty to go to the dictionary because I think it's not that the dictionary is my very best friend, but when I want to be more accurate on the definition of a particular word, I mean, that's a good place to go. So I went to the dictionary and I looked at the definition of the word perspective. And here, this is what it says. Perspective is a particular attitude toward or way of regarding something. That's what perspective. But then I love this other definition, which is much more clear to me, much more succinct, and to the point. So, what is perspective? Perspective is a point of view, nothing more and nothing less. It's a point of view. So when it says, "What is your perspective on something?" You could have might as well ask the question: says, "What is your point of view on this issue?" I mean, it's the same thing. So a point of view. So I think that in the time that we are living right now, a lot of people have different perspectives and different points of view. So, what what can you share, Bob, about uh, your perspective on life, your perspective of you just finished a whole month of carpet diems, and you had been teaching us and sharing us different statements and amplify those statements. So what has that changed your perspective, your point of view on certain things?
Well, you mentioned the word attitude in there, and it sounds like it's synonymous, that perspective and attitude are interchangeable. Your attitude is going to determine your perspective is going to determine your attitude. And so
Mhm.
we need to go up to the say the 30,000-foot view and bring it down. um, each and every one of us has a different personality. We're not wired the same, and yet that could determine what our perspective is because of our attitude as to how we see things
Yeah.
based on how we're wired. It could have something to do with where we were born, where we were raised,
Yes.
the income of the family. It could take into account racial considerations, could take into consideration nationality considerations,
Cultural considerations.
cultural and acultural, two different two different ways of looking at it. And so my attitude determines my altitude. So does therefore my perspective determine my altitude as well? Again, 30,000-foot view.
I
Um,
Bob, I am not leaving, but I am going to pick something up very quickly because you talked about attitude and the fact that that is a little bit related to perspective. And let me just share with you that attitude is everything,
and it's even facing in the right direction.
and is even facing in the right direction. So that's what I wanted to share. But it's true. I mean, all the things that you mentioned, your upbringing. I mean, your the way that your parents raised you, the country you were born in, the culture that you were connected with. All of those things come into play when it determines what kind of a perspective you have on life. Now, let me ask you a question because I would love your take on this. As human beings, is it right, or is it? Are we always striving to look at things from, or to search for the right kind of perspective, or not?
Well, it's how we perceive things. So I'm going to ask you, what kind of car do you drive?
Uh, uh, I drive a Hyundai Veloster, which is one of those not very big cars, and is not a two-door or a four-door. It is a three-door
Mhm.
a car, and that's the I mean that's the one that I drive. I think that is very economic when it comes to fuel consumption, and for me, I am not particularly driven to very big and bulky kinds of vehicles.
Well, before I get into the car that you drive and my perception of what I perceive, because I have a different perception and perceivement of that. I don't know how people have perceived me today, but obviously, when we also talk about first impression mode, perception becomes reality, reality
Mm.
becomes perception, and we may not know who's watching us from afar.
Yeah.
And the impact of the perception that we are portraying, what is that, as that electrical flies from us. So now that we've had some perception, I can get a little comfortable here. um, Much better. Now, you drive a Hyundai.
Yes.
I too drive a Hyundai. Now, your car was probably made either in the US or Korea.
Yeah.
Mine was made in India,
Oh.
interestingly enough. And I would never buy a Velociter because it's too sporty for me. And also, I don't like sitting on the floor because
Okay.
I perceive that when I'm driving, I like to sit up high, and so I need more of an SUV or something that's a little higher. Now, economically speaking, probably right. Now, I'm going to take a stab and say, is it a silver car? Did you tell me what color it is?
Mm, I don't remember, but I don't think so.
You
But
don't remember what you drive?
well, yes, I know, but I don't think that I ever told you what color it was.
Ah,
Um, but it is. You mentioned silver, and it is. It is a silver. And but
this is unplugged. We
yeah,
we've not rehearsed this.
no, 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 no. But I want to go one step further than that. I got, it's funny that you mentioned this because I don't know in Bermuda, but right here in the U.S., pretty much in every car dealership that you go, you want to go. I mean, they take you to the yard. I mean, to see different cars, and you don't see color cars. Most of 98% of the cars that are parked on dealership car lots, they are either white, they're black, they are silver, and every so often you may see a dark blue car, or you may see a kind of like a dark reddish Bordeaux type car, but you don't see hardly ever. I mean, that would be a miracle if you see a bright yellow car, or you see a bright blue car, or you see a bright red car, or even a bright orange car. I mean, you don't see those. Now, those colors, if you go, they are available because when you look at the paperwork or whatever, the brochure that they give you, you can see, you can pick all the different colors, but they're nowhere to be found. I mean, that's something that you have to request by special order. Now, if it would have been for me, I would have loved to pick either a bright red car or a
Mhm.
yellow car, because those colors resonate with me. Not a silver one, but that was the only option. I didn't want to pick a white or not a black. I mean, I'm not into black cars. And so the silver was the option, Bob.
And that's what I would have perceived about you.
Yes.
But I didn't want a beige car. But here on the island, you get what they have, or you
That's
wait until the next shipment comes in and you hope that they may have. So it's not like being in the land of the free and the home of the brave, where you can go down to the dealership and they have a multitude of choices. But from a perceptual point of view, if you're driving down the road, how often do you see your car stand out? In other words, you're watching the different cars going down the road, and your focus is, oh, there's another Velociter. Oh, there's another Velociter. Oh, there's another Velociter. As opposed to, oh, there's a GMC, there's a Ford, your subconscious picks up on what you're driving, because it's almost like a perceived affinity that it's part of a club. But I want to bring up, you probably remember the story. Mark Cole put this out the other day, and it was a comparing and a contrasting of the times now versus times long ago.
Mm,
And I'll start off with the classic opening lines from Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And then I add, but it's the times. So for someone who was born back in 1900, they, in that century, 1900 to 1999, that's the 20th century, assuming that they lived 100 years, they would have seen how many instances of famine, death, destruction, war, etc.
mm,
Uh, and that was their perceived time. And then, of course, with each succeeding generation, so those that were born in 1900 led to the greatest generation for those people that were born in the late 20s that ended up going into World War II in Korea. And then there were the baby boomers, those people like me, I assume like you, that came along in the early 50s to the mid 60s, were referred to as the baby boomers. And yet, with each succeeding generation, we perceived and determined what our attitude was going to be based upon the hardships that we thought we were going through, which was far harder than the generation prior.
mm.
And yet we get to the generations today in the 21st century, and they're thinking that, oh my gosh, I've got it so hard. We've got this virus and all this nonsense going on. And my statement is, you should only know. You should only know. So, how is the attitude of each generation looking back on us older fuddy duddies that had it so easy? Now, I thought I had it hard growing up, and there's great stories that go with that. I know you felt the same way, but let's compare that to a prior generation that went through all of that famine, disease, war, death.
I think I think every generation has I think that every generation has its pluses, its positives, and there are many of those, but also it has all their minuses, and all the negative things and all the obstacles and all the difficulties. And yes, I mean, sometimes, it wasn't a long time ago. And this was, just to give a kind of an illustration of what young kids today, the perspective that they have. Because I was, before all of this coronavirus, started, I
which
had a
I've had up to here, by the way.
I think so. Yes, he's getting to that. To that level. But I had a conversation with a high school, I think a senior in high school, and we were talking, and in the conversation, I said, "Hey, when I went to school, and I used to use log tables and a slide ruler. I mean, to add, subtract, and divide, and multiply, and do all kinds of operations.
Hang on a second, because you're speaking old language here, and some of these younger people might have think, why was he using a log table? Couldn't he use a plastic table?
Well, you see, that sometimes that could be the perspective that people today they have. I mean, when you talk about a log table, they think a log. I mean, like a log, like a tree trunk log kind of thing. No, no, no. It was a logarithmic table. You know,
Log for short.
and then you were and you talk, and you could have seen this guy's eyes just popping out, because I was talking to him in a different language, as if I was bringing things from a different planet or even universe. It says, what is this guy talking about? It's because they cannot relate to that, because it's a different generation and they do things differently. I mean, it's just, but it's having the perspective to see how things have evolved and how things have changed. And but as we were bouncing ideas back and forth, Bob, one of the things that you also mentioned, that it could be related, I'm sure that it is related, I mean, to the topic of perspective. It was, you mentioned the law of cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
And which I believe that Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, says that was the law of all laws. I mean, when you look at all the universal laws, the law of cause and effect is the law of all laws. And that, if you don't know what the law of cause and effect is, I'm sure that you heard in physics. In physics, you have physics, chemistry, mathematics. Well, that physics, there is a law, which is the third law of Newton, that says, or the second law of Newton, that to every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So if I am going to go to that wall and push against that wall, I will not move the wall, but the wall is pushing against me with an equal and opposite reaction to my pushing. So when it comes to the law of cause and effect, I mean, there can never be an effect if first there was not a cause acting on it. Now, when it comes to our thoughts and our behaviors and our actions that create specific effects, how is that relate, I mean, to the issue of perspective and having that? How can we bring all that, I mean, into that connectivity?
Well, first off, what was the first thing that came to your mind when you suddenly saw me on the screen for the first time
today?
Well,
the first thing that crossed into my mind, I'm going to tell you right now, it says, why is this man dressed with so formally today? I mean, what? I mean, I thought that you went to a meeting before and you had to dress like that. And it says, well, I'm not going to change. I'm going to stay like this. But I didn't know why you particularly dressed like that today.
So two things, or maybe three, but definitely two. What perception came across in your mind immediately in your subconscious, which communicated to your conscious? Did you take an attitude that, well, he didn't tell me to dress up, and look at me today, I'm totally relaxed? But knowing you, that wouldn't be you.
That's
That's
exactly right.
that's
Because
my perception.
that's
But
right.
I may perceive
Yeah.
that you might be thinking things in the background and not telling me.
Um,
That was one.
yes, I never thought. I never thought that you wanted, it never occurred to me that you wanted to portray you as a more formal kind of a guy than me, because that really doesn't bother me, because I mean, if I have to dress up, and if I have to go to a place, I mean, to give a presentation, I would never go like this. I would dress. I mean, I would not wear a tuxedo, but I would wear a jacket and a tie. And even, I mean, I would ask permission, I mean, to the organizer, and says, hey, when I give a presentation, I mean, can I take my jacket off and just be with my tie and shirt? Yes. But I would never go like this, I mean, to give a training or to give a presentation. But when I am like this, I mean, that I can feel a little bit more formal and not too many constraints, then I don't mind. And there are people who may accept me like this, and people who said, oh, I mean, come on, it doesn't really bother me.
So I know we chatted about this in our very first broadcast that we did. At least I think I remember this. Is that I mentioned that what I've learned to do now is to call the executive assistant of where I'm going and ask, what is the boss wearing today? Because I've actually lost jobs, and probably good that I did, because I was overdressed. But the other point I want to bring up, because we are coming to the end here, and this is what I perceive in my perspective, that change is very difficult to come about when we have a perspective of perceivement that impacts our attitude.
Yeah. Yes, I think that you're absolutely right. So to really close this, another thing that, as we were bouncing things back and forth, um, I saw a statement that you wrote, and that I wanted you to just finish this segment. I mean, expounding a little bit on it. And you said, a moment of pain is worth a lifetime of glory. And when I read that, I said, what is he referring to? I want him to expand on that. So what is a moment of pain is worth a lifetime of glory, Bob?
What I've learned over the years is that I don't any longer, most of the time, look to put myself up on a pedestal. I have taken on the mantra of a servant leader. And sometimes being in the moment, being in the picture, there may be an amount of pain that takes place that will lead to the glory for others. But had I not had that moment of pain, the positive results might not have occurred. And interestingly enough, and this will be something that we might choose to talk about later on, I had posted this thing about being the eagle as opposed to being the seagull. And it prompted me to go into the Apple bookstore. And I'm going to be downloading later today a copy of Jonathan Livingston's Seagull. Now, I don't know if
I read the book. I mean, excellent book.
We read the book.
Richard Bach is the
Yes,
author.
and again, this is unplugged. We didn't plan this. I obviously read the book when I was in school. But if we were to bring that book into today's world and ask these kids to read that, their perception might probably won't be perceived the same way.
But I think that once you read the book is very, at least that particular book is very, very extremely clear on the
Mm-hmm.
message.
Mm-hmm.
And the message is, um, uh, what are you prepared to do? How high are you prepared to go? Um, and are you going to live your life under the burden of all kinds of limitations that says you cannot do that, you cannot start that business, you cannot be this, you don't have what it takes, you don't? Or are you going to just break through those freaking limitations and just shoot up like that bird, and then fly as high as you can possibly? There's no limits to the height that you can be flying on. I think that
So
that's very clear. I mean, that message.
I'm going to close this out with the fact that that's a great thing for us, at least in my perception. I'm perceiving that that's going to be a great topic for another day as to why we don't send our ducks to eagle school. And I, just as you're describing all of that, I probably should not have compared the eagle and the seagull. I probably should have compared the eagle and the duck.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes.
So I'll leave it to you to close this out, my friend.
But no, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. And hey, listen, for those who are watching or who will catch the replay, um, just I'm not going to I'm not going to spill all the beans. Okay, I'm just going to keep it intrigue. I want to maintain the intrigue. But Bob and myself, I mean, Bob and I, we are currently working very aggressively and hard and diligently into a program that and we are getting ready. Well, we are moving toward the launching time, but this is a program that is going to be a great way for anyone that wants to take their current living to the very next level, and become like John Livingston Seagull. I mean, to begin to fly and to soar even higher. That is a program that is just going to, I mean, just stay tuned, because it will definitely be worth your while to invest in it and to listen to it, because as we are working through it, it is transforming our own lives. And if we know that, we also know that it has the power to transform your life as well. So stay tuned, more to come on that.
And they can be intentional too.
And to be intentional too. Yes, also, yes, always. But thank you so very much. I mean, for sticking with us. I love that word sticking and all the other associated words like stickability. So have a great rest of the day. And as I always say, live every moment. Don't miss a bit. Live every moment with great enthusiasm. Be resilient, and also be kind, be passionate, and be well. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye, Bob.
Bye-bye.